What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Career Mode. This is episode number 226. And we start today's episode off by seeing the details of the tournament prize money we received after knocking PSG out of the Champions League quarterfinals, and after advancing one more day in the calendar, we can now see the draw for the Champions League semi-finals as I return for the third time in my managerial career to the final four of Europe's premier competition, where Sheffield United in the Champions League semi-finals will be taking on Yep, it's Bayern Munich, the German side, and I'll be honest here, it's the one team I didn't want out of the three as well. Wolfsburg faced Manchester City in the other tie. As we know, both Atletico Madrid and Roma were knocked out in the previous round. Leverkusen were knocked out in the last 16, so no former teams remaining, but it's Bayern Munich in the semis. You can see the first leg comes after our third and final game today, which is the FA Cup semi-final against Newcastle United, and the second leg will come a few days before the clash against West Ham. So yeah, first leg at Bramwell Lane, second leg away at the Allianz in Munich, and I'm not feeling too confident for it. I think Bayern Munich will prove to be tougher than PSG and Real Madrid were. We brushed aside those two European giants relatively comfortably. I can't see us doing it 3 times in a row. It's going to be a tough tie regardless though, and again, Man City versus Wolfsburg is the other tie, the first leg. In fact, I think both legs will be coming in the very next episode. Yeah, of course they will be. But still, for the first game of today's episode here, we will take on Arsenal back to duty in the Premier League, where as you would have seen by the league table, can you believe it? Yes, miracles do happen. Chelsea have finally slipped up for just a third time this season. They've been on an amazing winning run for so long, stretching back to the first half of the season. But finally, someone has taken points off Chelsea. And who was it? It was this team right here. Arsenal drew with Chelsea in their last game, which meant this was our game in hand. And whilst the Blues had gone 12 points clear, a win in this game would cut the gap to 9 points. But we got off to a terrible start. Arsenal took the very early lead in the game, Hurtado heading across as they made it 1-0. But despite the Gunners having the early breakthrough, we had still been the better team. 29 minutes in, golden chance to find a leveller. Reece James rolls through David Turnbull, but the skipper fails to hit the target and puts it wide of the post. So the Gunners leading, but totally against the run of play. The first half, it was all Sheffield United. 10 minutes to go, another great chance here. Tony turns to Kanji, but Pickford makes the save and turns behind for a corner. And as it was still 1-0 with 6 minutes to go in the first half here, we continue to try and break down Arsenal and find the equalising goal. And as Jayden Bogle backheel towards Ivan Toney, Pickford denied him once again for the second time in just over 5 minutes. But from the corner, Elliott whips it in, and finally we had the breakthrough. Nicholas Wilson, yes, I've sung this guy's praises so many times, such a big fan of the versatile defender. He can play left back, right back, or where he normally plays centre back, and he heads us back on level terms. Lovely ball into centre by the chopper, and a fantastic finish by Wilson there as he gets ahead of his man, heads it in, and beats like 3 or 4 yellow shirts around him. Fantastic bit of aerial awareness there by Wilson, as he makes it 1-1 and finds us our leveller with his only goal of the season. So back on level terms, fully deserved the equalising goal as well, and really we deserve to be in front of this game. Had it not been for a fabulous run of saves by Jordan Pickford in this match, we would have won it. With 5 minutes to go, the final chance fell to us. Jayden Bogle crosses to the far post, picks out his full-back partner, Ollie Shaw, but as you can see by his reaction at full time, he knows he could have won the game. Barry, the first man over to him there, putting his hand on his back, saying, "Don't worry about it, Ollie, you'll get him next time." Love to see that sort of stuff there, but yeah, Shaw heads wide from the cross, and sadly the game does finish as a score draw. You see the stats here come full time. The highlights presented what was a very accurate game. We had been the far better team all throughout the course of the match, but Jordan Pickford made some fantastic saves in this game. He's the reason Arsenal got the point, and sadly for us, we squander our game in hand and the chance to cut the gap to 9 points with 5 games to go. But the truth of the matter is, whether we would have won the game, drawn the game, or lost the game, it wouldn't really have mattered one bit. There's only 5 games remaining, and again, even if we would have won the game, the gap would have been cut to 9 points. Chelsea still had a bit of goal difference record as well. Do you really think Chelsea are going to lose 4 times in their final 5 games? Nah, of course not. So even though he slipped up there, I wasn't really too fussed about it. Ultimately, the title's been won for quite a while now. There was no way Chelsea were going to let it slip through their fingers. And even after drawing against Arsenal in their last game, we knew, realistically, there's no chance of us catching up whatsoever. So For the second of 3 games in today's episode here, we are now travel away from home in midweek to the King Power Stadium to take on Brendan Rodgers' Leicester City, and in a very poor first half, unlike the last game on the weekend here, with 5 minutes to go before the break. Well, you know, since the patch back in January, we've seen the AI score some absolutely amazing goals against us in this save. This has got to be one of the favourite goals I've conceded, if that makes sense. This was absolutely glorious here. Ball over the top, and Brian Gonzalez has been great in his debut year. Well, he just got the run around here by Leicester's number 39. Chips the ball over his head, then puts it round the side of him, and then runs around the other side. And then with a finish with the left boot, absolutely inch perfect. In off the far post, into the back of the net, and Leicester get themselves in front, courtesy of a bit of magic. 1-0 to the Foxes, and that was just an absolutely glorious goal. So let's take the lead, but just before the break, as we were 2 minutes into stoppage time in the first half, we would find our leveller. Willem Gobels getting a rare start in this game due to our FA Cup semi-final coming on the weekend. I did decide to rotate most of my side for this game, and it was a nice little ball through by Breccize and the touch by Gobels. That was absolutely glorious, wasn't it? Not quite as good as Leicester's goal, but anyway, still pretty nice there. First time control, puts it through his legs, and then past Iverson to make it 1-1. But in this game, Leicester had been the better team. They'd showed a lot more promise than we had. However, despite the moment of magic in the first half for them to break the deadlock, Scott McKenna in this game put in a vintage display in our back line. It was Scott the Block back to his best, back like Season 1, Season 2 Scott McKenna. He was blocking so many shots in this game and put in a brilliant display. And just before the hour mark, a chance for Brian Fagan to score a sensational goal and give us the lead against the run of play. Sadly, was denied by Iverson, who turned it behind for a corner. But final score at the King Power, Leicester City 1, Sheffield United 1. So yet another slip up for the Blades. But again, whilst our run of form of late has been quite erratic, quite poor, I'm not really that fussed about it, because again, as we know, this title has been won by Chelsea quite some time ago. So when they beat Fulham here by a goal to nil, as you can see, it didn't really matter either way whether we would have won that game or not. The gap is just far too big for us to close, and there's no way we are going to catch up. So a 1-1 draw, again, even though it might be a disappointing scoreline, it isn't something I'm really that fussed about, because we know the title is already going to Stamford Bridge this season. So following the game, as you can see, the reason why we did rest so many of our players on the Wednesday night clash there against Leicester is because for our third and final match today, we would have the FA Cup semi-final, a far more important game for us as we try and reach just our second FA Cup final in the series. And the only other time we got here, it was our final game in charge of Sheffield United domestically. Yes, we lost to Liverpool in the FA Cup final in Season 4. That was our last domestic game with the club. Since then, we've not returned to Wembley for an FA Cup final. We were here last year for an EFL Cup final, which we won, and I'd love to make it through and face Arsenal, who have made it into the final after beating Man City on the Saturday. So definitely favourites of this game, no doubt about it. But Newcastle United, not fazed by being the underdogs, started the game off looking the brighter team. Fernandes almost gave them the lead just 10 minutes in there with that shot going just wide of Dean's right hand post and behind for a goal kick. And a few minutes later, across the centre, wasn't fully dealt with by Todibo. Fernandes nods it down, and the half volley sails just wide of the post once again. So the Magpies have made a brighter start in the game here at Wembley. We hadn't got started in the nation's capital at all. But a few minutes later, as Reece James receives the ball, he plays it into Ivan Toney. He's got a great record of scoring against his former club. But for this goal here, he doesn't get it himself. Instead, he sets it up. He rolls it across the middle. And who's there to turn it in? It's David Turnbull, the captain. Since we returned to Bramall Lane last season, he was captain here when we came back. And I decided to keep the armband worn by David Turnbull. I'm so glad I've done that, because he's come up so big in so many games for us since we've returned to Bramall Lane. And another big moment there by the Scot. Smacks it in, makes it 1-0 and breaks the deadlock against the run of play, had to be said there, to give us the lead. But after a poor second half where rarely anything had happened, Ivan Toney had the best chance of the half there, smacking the post. It was still 1-0. And with 3 minutes to go, Pierre Rocher was denied by a fabulous save by Freddie Woodman, who pounced on the rebound as well. But fortunately, whilst there weren't that many chances, the one goal was all we needed, unlike the last two games. We keep a clean sheet, and that is why we are into the FA Cup final for just the second time in the save. David Turnbull's goal separates the sides, and we have made it back for our second domestic cup final in as many years, as we are in to the FA Cup final to face Arsenal and keep, if nothing else, a chance of domestic silverware alive alive, and an FA Cup Champions League double is still very much alive for the time being. But that was this episode of Career Mode, guys, so a big thank you for watching. I really hope you have enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy today's episode, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Career Mode, featuring both legs of the Champions League semi-final, with the first leg coming at Bramall Lane very soon.